Welcome to Building Culture into Reliability. All right, if y'all didn't know that that's what this talk is about, just wanted to go ahead and give you a heads up. This is what it's about. It's about treating reliability as a first-class citizen. I am Reggie, full name Reginald Davis. I am a senior SRE at Elastic. I am the technical lead of the core SRE team for Elastic on the reliability side of things. I specialize in incident management, disaster recovery, and alert management. I'm a proud Texan. I'm the father of 2 dogs, BJ and Layla. I love them with everything in me. I'm an avid hip hop head, streetwear lover, and foodie. Shout out to Martha Stewart and Anti-Social Club. And no, you can't beat me in basketball. Anybody that try to say they can play, no. I get tired of that. I played Division I basketball for University of Texas at Arlington. Whoop, whoop. Go Mavs, Mavs up. And it's funny because being an engineer, you don't really run into like a lot of former athletes anymore. And it's always like that one it's always somebody's like, let's play basketball. And I'm like, nah, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. You need to go talk to somebody else. I'm not the one. It's gonna end very bad for you. But today, this talk is really all about introducing culture into reliability. And the reason why I think this is a very important thing as an SRE, I've been an SRE for about 2 or 3 years, and I was a developer. I was once a developer, and then I transitioned I went from DevOps, I went to SRE. And when I became an SRE, I went from just looking at code and thinking about functionality and stuff like that to actually looking at systems as a whole. And what I began to realize after a while is like, it's not all about code. It's really not about the code. As much as people like to make it about code and making clever code and doing all the things, that's really not what it's about. It's really about the culture of development, right? And I think a lot of times we kind of miss that because, we're always about pushing out features and providing business value and doing all of the things. But the reality is that as businesses and as companies, as teams get bigger, the reality becomes more of a thing. It's no different than if you look at a big company like McDonald's. It's not about introducing a new hamburger every month. It's about making sure the hamburger that we already delivered to you tastes the same way that you got it the first time, right? And the only way you're able to do that, only way you're able to build a reliable product like that is by creating a culture that actually establishes that, hey, this is what's important, right? Like you have to establish a culture of consistency, of reliability, of loyalty, right? Like these are cultural things. This has zero to do with code. That's why I didn't even want to make it about code, because I think it's very easy to get lost in the code. This is from Mahatma Gandhi. No culture can live if it attempts to be exclusive, right? Like this is a thing. Culture is a thing. Whether you like it or not, culture is a part of everything we do. It decides the people we hang out with. It decides the work that we do. It decides the people we date. It decides the neighborhoods we live in. It decides so many aspects of our lives. And in order to build a sustainable product or to build a sustainable service, you have to actually reassess the culture of an environment. I think a lot of times what I've noticed as an SRE, reliability, just like security, is something that kind of gets added on to the end. It's just an ad hoc process. It's like, oh yeah, we'll add the reliability at the end, and then when the bugs start coming in, services start failing, outages start happening, then upper management is like, yo, what the hell is going on here, right? And everybody's looking for that quick fix, but to be honest with you, there's no such thing as a quick fix when it comes to building reliable products. It just does not exist. You can add as many logs as you want, you can do as much as you want, there's not a quick fix when it comes to reliability. And so the first thing I really want to talk about is improving the barriers of entry by actually introducing standardization. So one thing that I've realized as a SRE is that as systems scale, right? My whole thing is about scaling and performance, making sure it can stay up, it can scale. Customers are receiving the same type of performance regardless of if it's 100 customers on a platform or 1,000 customers on a platform, right? But the reality is it really begins by standardization. And here's a quote from the late great, well, not the late great, but the great Joey Badass. I don't know, hip hop fans, anybody? Yes? Anybody listen to Joey Badass's last album? No? Man, it's amazing. Y'all should go listen to it. But you're only as strong as the weakest link. You got to make sure everybody in your crew is on point, right? This is just the reality. Any development team, any company, any service, anything that you put out there for consumption is only as good as its weakest link. So if your logging is weak, guess what? Your service is only as good as your logging. If your infrastructure and your deployment processes are weak, you're only as good. You can only deploy so fast. If your code is weak, at some point you have to expose these inefficiencies in your system, right? And you have to create standards in order to make them better. And so the way I like to look at any type of service or environment, I like to look at every company or every development team like it's its own city, right? Like if I go to Atlanta, I go to Houston, I go to New York, I go to wherever, it's gonna be a town hall, it's gonna be a hospital, it's gonna be streets, hopefully some street lights, there's gonna be some places to get some food. There's gonna be all of these different things, right? Every city has this. There's these standards, these things that we expect when we go into certain environments, right? And that is just the reality. That's the same thing with any company you go to. At the end of the day, code is code, right? But it's the way you organize it in the culture that you actually build around the development processes that's gonna actually influence the culture, right? Which is also gonna influence your end product. And every team within those cities are like a new building. You can have a building that's 10 stories tall, you can have a building that's 2 stories tall. It don't matter, it's still in the same city though. And as a result, every building can have its own layout, design, security, electricity, a whole nine. Every service is gonna have these things. But the reality is that every building has to meet the standards that are set out by the city, period. You're not building no new building and it don't go by the city. You're not building a house and it doesn't pass code. That's not how it goes. Unfortunately, in technology or in development, that's not always the case. Unfortunately, in technology, that is not always the case. If any of y'all came from environments that are startups or coming from environments that are just moving fast, moving at a rapid pace, y'all probably have noticed that everybody seems to like to do their own thing. Everybody wants to do their own thing. Everybody got their own style guide. Everybody got their own pipeline. Everybody got their own way of logging errors. They got their own way of reporting on errors. Everybody has their own way of doing things. Fortunately, it doesn't scale well. Sorry, I hate to tell y'all that. It does not scale well. As an SRE, as a person that gets alerted and the person that's on call, not the funnest thing to deal with. When you got 5, 10 different services, 20 different services, one's Java, one's JavaScript, one's Python, one's Go. They using this old library. Oh, well, this is Python 2.7, but this is over here at Python 3.10, right? You dealing with a different monster every time you see a service, you're dealing with a brand new monster. And the unfortunate reality is when you talk about reliability and scaling, that is not a scalable model. You cannot be dealing with a new beast every time something goes out. I should not be reinventing the wheel every time an outage happens. And a lot of times that's what we end up doing. So I think often about how do you introduce new standards in an established environment? Because sometimes you're not in the startup where you're starting from scratch. Sometimes you may be going into an environment like an Elastic or a Schlumberger or a Warner Brothers or something like that, where you have these big, huge companies and everybody kind of is already doing their own thing. You already have these standards that people like to go by. And the one thing I've noticed is that SRE, developers do not like change at all. If I built it, I'm not trying to do that again. I don't care. I do not want to touch it again. Has anybody had this experience before? Raise your hand. So nobody likes going back and doing things that they already had to do 2-3 years ago, digging up, well, how do we put this pipeline together? Because 9 times out of 10, let me think, there's probably no docs, right? Logging probably trash. The person who originally built it is no longer there or went to a different team, right? Somebody else got to come in and take this thing over. Or this is a business critical process that nobody can touch. Don't touch it. You can't touch this service. Don't touch it. Don't do nothing to it. It just exists. We don't do anything with it. No, like I have to touch this because if it breaks, I have to fix it. I have to understand how to fix it. So how do you go into an environment? How do you establish new standards in an environment that's already established? First thing first, you got to respect what's already there. If it's one thing that people don't like, I'll say this as an SRE, especially being the new SRE on the block. One thing that people don't like, even Beth will attest to this, one thing that people don't like is when you completely dismiss what's already been there. Because the reality is that what got you hired. That's what got everybody else that check or that promotion, or that's what got this person this extra bonus, or whatever it is. Whatever is there got people to wherever y'all are at, right? So you have to respect what's there. So no, don't come in there and say, hey, I got a new idea. I heard this guy Reggie talk at Refactor Tech, and he told me we about to tear all this shit down. I didn't say that. Did not say that at all. I did not say that. I said respect was already there. Like, respect was, he laughing because I feel like that's probably a thing that's happened. I went to a conference. I heard this guy talk. I have this new idea. No, that's not how that goes. You have to respect what's already there. And a lot of reason why is because whenever you try to come in and just do new things, once again, like we already talked about, developers don't like change, right? And then on top of that, you're dismissing the efforts of the people that came before you. It's not that they even want to do anything bad or wrong. Sometimes you don't even really understand the other variables that they had to deal with at that time. They may have been in a rush. They may have been dealing with limited resources. Somebody may have just left the team, so they had to take over this new service that they never knew about, but they had to push this fix out. It's so many variables that we have to deal with as engineers, developers, product managers that we don't know, and it's not fair to the people that came before to all of a sudden say, well, I have a new idea for how we should do things, and so guess what, I'm gonna just erase everything that was there. Respect what was already there. Number 2, start small. There's nothing wrong with starting small. I think one of the biggest issues, and we'll talk more about it as we move on, is that developers are an ambitious bunch. We like to take on a lot more than we like to chew, right? We want to push out as much in that feature as we can. We want to push it out. We want to get it out. We want to do the things. But you don't always have to just push everything out. You don't have to move things in big chunks. Sometimes you just need to start small. Just start small and go from there. So when we talk about a new standard, for example, in Elastic, a new standard, right? Like when I came into Elastic, I like to say, I ain't gonna say that. I like to say that I kind of came in during a transitional period during Elastic's life cycle. Elastic is a company that IPO'd about 4 or 5 years ago. If anybody's ever been at a company after about 3, 4, or 5 years, you kind of know what happens. Them stocks start vesting. People start cashing out them checks. I'm gone. I couldn't stand my manager, and now my stock's invested. Whoop, I'm gone. Let me slide out, right? That's the whole thing. And so when I came into that environment, you're seeing all of this change. You're seeing people drop off left and right. And a lot of times people see those type of situations and they want to introduce a lot of change. And truth be told, those are the worst times to introduce big changes, right? Because if you try to introduce these big changes, even though you have new people onboarding left and right, the reality is that there's already an established way of doing things. And what you want to do is you just want to start small because change is not easily digestible when it comes in large chunks, right? So you have to start small. You really, really have to start small. So if you're introducing a standard, even if it's a new way of dealing with on-call, even if it's a new way of dealing with alerts, start small. Do not do big thrashing changes across your environment because you feel like this is the right thing to do. Start small. When it comes to new habits, you have to always start small. And the next thing is you have to over-communicate those small changes, right? So even if it is a small change, even if it's a change to the on-call schedule or a change to the way alerts come in, or it's a change to the way we deploy new services, or it's a change to the way we do our testing, over-communicate it. And communicate up, communicate down, and communicate in between, right? Communicate to the manager. Let them know what's going on. Communicate to the developers on the team. Let them know what's going on. Send them emails. Put it in the Slack. Tell them, hey, we got some new docs, because the last thing you want to do is introduce a small change and somebody say, well, I didn't know what was going on. Well, I mean, I put it in the Slack channel. Put it in the email. I let your manager know, hey, I popped into your stand-up and told you what was going on. It ain't my fault that you didn't show up. Your team should have told you, right? Over-communicate. Over communicate even the smallest change. You never want people to feel like they missed an opportunity to learn something new or about a new change or anything like that. So over communicate even the smallest changes when it comes to building that culture or really actually introducing new standards. Next thing, amplify your focus by reducing scope. All right, this is a big one. I'm gonna tell you why this is a big one. The reason why this is a big one is because a lot of times you have teams that take on way more than they can chew. They own one service too many, right? They own too many services, or they're trying to push too many features too fast. They don't have enough resources, the whole nine. Every team, everybody want to be the superhero, right? Like everybody wants to be this pariah when it comes to the environment. And the reality is as Zig Ziglar likes to say, I don't care how much power, brilliance, or energy you have. If you don't harness it and focus it on a specific target and hold it there, you're never going to accomplish as much as your ability warrants. I repeat again, I don't care how much power, brilliance, or energy you have, right? Because as developers, we think sometimes we can take on more than we can chew. And the reality is it's not always the case. Sometimes you can be the smartest engineer in the world. You can be the smartest engineer in the world, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not focusing that energy towards a single target, right? If you're taking on too many tasks at once, you with your project manager, if you have a project manager, you with your project manager, y'all doing y'all points, y'all saying, oh, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take 15 points or take 20 points this week or whatever it is. And then you only get 5 done. You only get 3 done, right? How many times have we overestimated our ability to accomplish something in a sprint? Raise your hand. It's a very natural thing for us to do, right? Because we're looking at an issue, we're looking at a problem, we're like, oh yeah, we know that, we can do it, we figured it out. Nah, take on what you can chew. Because at some point, every dev thinks they're a hero, right? We all think we're a hero. Whether we're the master debugger, whether the master commenter, whether we're the person on Stack Overflow that got all the answers, whether we're the person that knows where that last skeleton in the closet is, at some point we feel like we're a hero about something. But the reality is that that's typically not the case. 4 days to release, hey, fix me. 3 days to release, all right, I'm chilling. 1 day to release, the bug's still there. 2 hours to release and it's still there. Right? Who has not dealt with that? It's time to cut that branch off. We got to cut that branch off, get that PR push. We got to get it out there. Let's get it out there. And you looking at that screen like, man, why is Golang tripping today? Golang not tripping. You tripping. Like, you tripping. The language ain't do nothing to you. You put yourself in that corner, right? We're more human than we think. And the reality is when a service goes down, the business don't want a hero. They want to fix. They don't care who fixes it. They want it fixed. And if you got that one person that's that superhero for your team that knows all the things about it, but guess what? He on vacation. He in Bali this week. Or he in Mexico. He's somewhere else. How that hero going to save you then? The business don't care. Because they just see a team. They don't see an individual. They don't see a hero. They don't see a person. They see a team. So they want the fix. So we have to get into these spaces where we're reducing the scope and increasing our focus and being good at the thing that we know how to do well versus trying to be everything to everybody. Even to the point of just encouraging small pushes. Stop taking on more than what you can chew. I tell this to my team a lot. Stop taking on more than what you can chew. I could care less if you push 200 lines of code, introduce all these new features, all these things. Because if I release it, and now I got a whole bunch of issues. I didn't release 5 features. I didn't release 5, 6 features in this sprint. And now, 2, 3 weeks later, I got 20 bugs. Where do I even begin? Where do I even begin? How do I even start to actually decipher what is going on here, right? It's too much to deal with. And typically what ends up happening in situations like this, you push, you push, you push, you push, you keep pushing. Little do you know, it's a whole bunch of technical debt you dragging. That ass is getting fat. and not in a good way, right? You dragging technical debt the entire time, and y'all never, how often do we actually set time apart to actually refactor and fix these things? Who laughed? You already know. You already know. That's just the reality, especially if you're moving at a fast-paced environment, right? It's not very often where we get that time to actually go back and deal with the technical debt that we're pushing. So I'd rather deal with a small push. I'd rather you push out 1 or 2 features, right? The business might be like, oh, we want all of this right now. No, you don't. You think you do, but you really don't. And that's our job as developers, because at the end of the day, we're the experts, right? They're thinking about the business, they're thinking about the finances and the quarter reviews and all that kind of stuff, but we thinking about, I got to deal with this in 3 months. I got to deal with this thing at some point. Somebody's going to have to deal with it. And it might not be you today, but it's going to be somebody in 5 years. And we have to start thinking about the people that have to deal with it, not just ourselves and with the business. Somebody's going to have to deal with it. And that sucks. I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought it sucks. I'm sorry. I know. I love it. Trust me, I'm one, as an engineer, I love pushing out the new shiny things. I like working on a new code, trying out new things and the whole nine. But even when I became an SRE, I had to really increase my level of discipline, right? Like that was like the biggest thing that changed about my development practice is my discipline. I have so much more discipline now because now I'm not concerned, because now I know I'm not just writing code for today. I'm writing code for next week. I'm writing code for next month. I'm writing code for next year, right? And then when you're the person on the other end having to deal with this code that's getting pushed out a lot, you start thinking a little bit more clear about what you push. I'd rather push out one feature that has good logging, that has good monitoring, that has good documentation. We got all the diagrams updated. We got all of the data. We got everything here, right? Versus pushing a half-ass feature that don't got no logging, that we never really thought about the metrics. We didn't really think about the business values, but we didn't think about it. We just pushed the feature out. And then when things break, we sitting there looking like, I don't know what happened. I thought the code was good. We all thought the code was good. We always think the code is good. I repeat, we always think the code is good. How many times y'all thought, man, this code is perfect. This is great code. And then you roll it out, and it's like, oh, shit, I didn't think about that. Man, it's making a lot of calls to that database. Why is that being formatted like that? What is happening here? It happens to us all, right? Like, that's just the reality. Stop biting off more than we can chew. Here's a big one. This is a big one for me. I ain't gonna lie. This is my favorite one. This is my favorite one as an SRE. We got to promote independence through ownership. Right? You write it, you deal with it. We don't live in the world, well, we still do, depending on what company you work for, where I write my code and I throw it over the fence. I'll let that person deal with it. I'll let them deal with it. I'll just write the code. Oh, that's their problem. That's SRE's problem. That's SREs. That's what they're good for. Hence the reason why I got really good at telling people how shitty their code is. Your life must be a progression towards ownership. First, mentally, of your independence, then physically, of your work, owning what you produce. This is Robert Greene. This is my favorite author. How many people read 48 Laws of Power? No? Oh my God. Art of Seduction? Mastery? No. Just go read one of his books. Go read Mastery or Law of Human Nature or something like that. This dude is amazing. So I love his books because of the simple fact that Robert Greene does a really great job of, he makes these points, but he uses historical references to back his points. It's not just these things, these ideas he's had through experience. He's taking people that over history, kings, queens, empires, and he's using these stories from history to prove the point that actually still exists even in these days. And the reality is he's really dead on about ownership. As we get older, as we mature more, right? As we get that promotion, we get these things, right? The idea is to take more accountability, right? Because typically the reverse, this is what I see. You go from senior, you become principal, you become these big, oh yeah, I'm the big person on campus. And then it becomes this thing of, well, you do it. Well, you do it. Well, that's not my job no more. No, you do it. right? We always, they get to this space where I'm gonna tell the junior guy to deal with this problem. I'm gonna tell them, that dude barely even know what a for loop is. And now you asking them to fix stuff? No, that's not how the game goes. You gotta take ownership of everything that you do. But the reality is developers hate being told how to do their job. How many times has management came to y'all and said, this is what we want to do and tried to push it on to y'all? How many times has this happened to y'all? None. Management don't tell y'all, hey, this is how we want y'all to do things. It happens to me a lot. It happens to me a lot. Because if stuff keep breaking and we keep losing money and we keep doing things and they don't see the developers or the teams taking accountability or making the fixes, taking ownership, then eventually what's going to happen is they will press upon what they want from you. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you getting to try new language and write the new code. It's about the business making money. It's about the business providing value, right? And if we have to put things in place, if we have to put safeguards in place to save developers from themselves, then that's what we're going to do. Because at the end of the day, we don't really care about you as a developer. We care about the product. They don't care about you as a developer. They care about the product. That is just a fact. The one thing I realize as an SRE is that I am very replaceable. We are all replaceable as developers, right? But the reality is the more accountability, the more ownership we take in the work that we do, right, the more autonomy we have over our environment. And I'm all about giving teams the tools to do what they need to do without telling them, right? Like me as an SRE, glorified DevOps, whatever you want to call it, I want to get out the way. I want to empower you as a developer. I want to build the tools. I want to create an environment so when you go in and you write that code and you push that feature and you do those things, guess what? You're not even having to worry about all of these standards and all of these things I'm having to put in place in order for you to actually, I don't know, do your job. I'm going to build the tools for you. I'm going to create the environment for you. I'm going to lay the foundation for you, right? And all I need you to do is go in and put your paint on, paint the crib, you know what I'm saying, update, put you a nest thermometer in there, I don't know, whatever you need to do. I'm going to lay all that stuff out for you. We have to make sure we're giving tools to the developers so they can do their jobs without me telling them. Because I don't want to ever tell you what to do. But I can at least create an environment where you feel like you're in control. That's what we want. Few examples of this. Introducing the service catalog, shout out to Beth. Introducing the service catalog was a big one. So one thing we're doing in Elastic right now, we're introducing service catalog. We're introducing Backstage, right? And the reason why I felt like that was a very important step, a next step for us as a platform is because what we wanted to do, or at least what I wanted to do as an SRE, is I wanted to shift left the mindset of reliability. I don't want reliability to be an ad hoc process. I want reliability to be something that's literally baked in to the development process, right? I don't expect developers to be experts in reliability either, right? I don't expect you to be an expert on how your logs should look. I don't expect you to be an expert on how your monitoring should be ingested. I don't expect you to be an expert on how the infrastructure be deployed, right? So we introduced a service catalog and we began working with our tooling team to say, hey, look, when a service gets deployed into production, how do we want it to look? How do we want these logs to come in? How do we want these things to do? So the next time the team says, hey, we want to introduce a new service, they go into the Backstage catalog, the service catalog. They say, hey, we want to create a new service. You pick a language. And as soon as it gets spun up, logging is set up, monitoring is set up, authentication is set up the way we want it across the board. We standardize it from the beginning. We standardize the development process from the very beginning, right? So now as a developer, if I want to create a new service, I'm focused on solving the business problem, and I'm not focused on solving DevOps issues, how are we going to deploy the infrastructure, all of these things. You don't care about that. You don't need to care about that, right? That's our job. What your job is, let's deliver the business value. So we introduce a service catalog. Automate the stuff they don't care about. Once again, it's a lot of things as a developer you really don't care about. You think you care, You probably care for right now because it's something new and shiny, right? But then in 6 months, you don't care. Great example. When I got to Elastic, it was 15 chat bots. Like, it was like chat bots everywhere. Everybody had a chat bot. Chat bot here, chat bot there. You get a chat bot, you get a chat bot. It was like a very Oprah moment. And I was like, man, we got like all of these chat bots running around and they're all doing 1,000 different things. And nobody's maintaining any of them. One's written TypeScript. One's written Python. Don't nobody even know what this other chatbot came from. It's just there. Don't touch it. We use it. Right? And it was like this thing of like, man, we got all these chatbots. What can we do to consolidate? Right? And one of the chatbots that we use is actually an incident management tool. Right? It automates all of the incident management process. So run books, all of that stuff is automated. Right? Came in, completely refactored. We had an old chatbot that did it, completely refactored it. There was one chatbot in TypeScript and another chatbot in Python, but they like, it was weird. Like they would talk to each other through Slack. It was like the weirdest shit ever. It was like, hey, I'm gonna open up this new incident. And then the other chatbot would be like, hey, come on in. And the other chatbot will come in and he will do stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Why can't it just be like one chatbot that does it all? So that's what we did. So we refactored it and we turned it, we rewrote it. Right? we rewrote it in Golang because that's the language of choice at Elastic. It became the language of choice. We created a new framework for it. And we rewrote it with the thought process of this is going to be the chatbot that rules them all. This is going to be the chatbot that we completely consolidate all the other chatbots into one thing. We're gonna have one standardized way of introducing new features through a chatbot. So now everybody you don't have to have a person know TypeScript and Python and Golang. If you want to add a new feature to the chatbot, this is how we do things. That's how we do it from now on. And you got one team that's managing the chatbot. You don't got to have like 15 chatbots being spun up in different Kubernetes clusters and one's in PaaS and one's on somebody's VM at their house and all this kind of stuff. We had to get rid of all of that. We completely got rid of that. We had to standardize on that. Next thing, we got to give them the data we got to give developers the data they need to do their job better. And one thing I've noticed as an SRE is that often developers don't have enough data to actually assess the problem properly, right? A lot of times, a lot of developers are just dealing with what they think they know versus what they need to know, right? And so we're going off these, I think it's this, I think it's that. We got to make sure we're giving them the data that they need. Hence the reason why we started introducing standardization. This is what we want to see from your login. Yes, you need an SLI. Yes, we need a service level indicator. I don't care about if it's, it's only using 10% memory footprint. The customer don't care about that. The customer don't care about, it only uses 5% of the CPU. Nobody cares about that. Is it working? Is it providing the value that we said it was going to actually provide? Right? How often do we release features and we don't even know if the feature is doing what it's supposed to do? Right? So how do you even validate that the time that the team invested in developing something is actually warranted? You have no clue. You just develop a feature, put it out there, and everybody said, yay, new feature. Does it work though? We don't know. So we got to give you the data that you need to do your job. You can't keep pushing out features and pushing out changes and stuff like that, and you don't even know if the things that you're doing are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So in conclusion, last 3 points. Final order, to sum it all up. Improving barriers by setting standards. There's nothing wrong with standards, y'all. Like, there's nothing wrong with standards. Standards are beautiful, especially for those new junior engineers, these new people that get onboarded, they have no clue what the hell is going on. Even if you got 10 years of experience, every new company is a new city, period. You can have 20 years of experience. As soon as you get hopped into a new environment, all of a sudden, the knowledge that you had is completely just gone. It don't even matter no more because you're in a new city. They have a new way of doing things. It's a different culture. It's a different thing. There's so many things about the environment that you've entered. There's nothing wrong with standards. Amplify your focus by reducing scope. There's nothing wrong with reducing scope. We're not superheroes. We humans. I'm pretty sure you don't want to get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning because a new feature you released was, we don't know. Well, why is this in here? Well, we thought it would be a good idea. No. Just deliver the value that they asked you to deliver. Don't deliver more than what you can actually handle. Because if you push something out there that you don't want to be accountable for, now you're going to be spending it all night, all day, or whatever, fixing something that the business never even asked for, which is a position that I see developers putting themselves in quite often. The company didn't ask for that, but now it's causing the service to go down. Reduce your scope, deliver what you need to deliver, increase your focus. Promote independence through ownership. Own your shit. It's just that simple. Own it. Own your things. However, the things that you own that, and then how people create tools, how people create things that allow you to focus on your job and not have to worry about all these extra things and all that stuff going on. And thank y'all. Thank y'all for pulling up. I appreciate y'all for coming through. I really do. I'm Cool Black Nerd. That's what I am on Twitter and on IG. COOLBLKNERD. Y'all got any questions? You want to talk Golang? You want to talk chatbots? You want to talk Elasticsearch? Because you might not know how it actually works. Most people don't. Hit me up. I'm always down. I'm always down. Thank y'all so much. And now it's like time for questions and the things. So, yes. Oh, questions. Please, go, please.
It's actually not a question. I just wanted to say, when you were talking about like giving the service catalog to your dev teams, I've often heard of like, well, my mother-in-law likes this thing, but if you have kids playing in a yard and you put a fence on the edge of that yard, they're going to be more bold to play near the traffic. But if you take that fence away, they're more scared. Mm-hmm. So you kind of like, you're building the environment where you're putting a fence around the yard, and now the devs can use the whole yard. Yep. Yeah, I just thought you might like that if you hadn't heard it.
No, I love that, and that's exactly the whole idea, right? It's like I want you to play across the whole thing. Like I want you. This is all your environment. But past this fence, that's your ass. Like, that is on you. That's the whole point. Like, to me, I like the idea of empowering developers. Like, I think a lot of times when I went from developer to SRE, one thing I realized was it's like that fence, that divide between ops and devs is it's a pretty stiff one. It's a really, really stiff one because a lot of times, when you're looking at the guys in security or you're looking at the guys in SRE, they usually telling you, don't do this or don't do that and blah, 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 and yada, 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 right? But the reality is, it's like, man, like, I don't want people to feel like I'm just telling them what to do. So why don't we just build an environment where it's just built the way we want it to be and they don't have to think about it? Because if I'm a developer and somebody comes and say, we got to make your code more secure, right? Like, make your code more secure. Okay, cool. How do I do that? I'm not a security expert. It's not fair to developers. So to me, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work with the security team. How can we develop a platform to where it's the security is built in, all the things are built in? Yeah, you need to do the data validation of things and scrubbing the data and making sure everything's cool, for sure. As a developer, you are responsible for that. But I don't expect you to know DNS and make sure the database is encrypted and making sure the HTTP is set up correctly and all of that stuff. That's just an unfair ask to me. Like it's just an unfair ask. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, stories anybody want to share? Things, y'all? It's Friday. I feel y'all. What's up?
So we're gonna start up and half of the things you say, I'm like, I need to have a conversation with somebody, but they're gonna be pissed.
Of course.
I'm fine. I don't have a problem you being upset. That's just me. I just want to fix stuff and make stuff work. And like, I've had the reliability conversation before, and it wasn't easy because they had to pay more money. I don't care. I just wanted to.
But you know what? People look at reliability as like, I got to pay more money. Because most times, this is what I see people doing. They try to solve reliability issues with tools. Throw it on Kubernetes, right? Throw it on Kubernetes, or go buy PagerDuty, or go buy this monitoring tool. And honestly, it don't have nothing to do with the tool. That's why I never wanted to make it about the code or the tools or the site. I didn't want to make it about any of that. It's a process. It's a culture, right? I think it's so easy to say, throw it on Kubernetes. It'll heal itself. It'll do this. It'll do all of the things. No, Kubernetes not going to save you from your badass code. It's just not going to happen. So that's why that's why I was like, yo, I don't want no code. I don't want no service. I don't even mention Kubernetes or containers or nothing. I literally just want to talk about the culture, the processes. That's it. Because that's all it comes down to. It's not a money thing. It never is. It's never been a money thing. People like to make it a money thing, but it's not. Any other questions, thoughts?
In my experience in that transition was where we used to play a game called Can You Predict when we're actually going to finish the deployment. We would write up a big board and everybody would pick their over-unders for every single milestone in the deployment process, and we would spend all weekend to when we got it standard, the game wasn't fun anymore because it was literally like
Yep. Absolutely. And it's funny, I mentor a young engineer out of Nigeria. We have talks every 2 weeks. And so I've been working with him on a couple of different things. You know, we do the Golang, the Kubernetes. I'm showing them all, you know, the basic stuff of SRE. Like, all right, let me tell you the things, right? And one of the things I told him was, I said, hey, I want you to go and build a pipeline. And I was like, first thing I want you to do, write your code, build your API, all right? Once you build your API, let's get some infrastructure. Where do I need to deploy this thing at, right? And the last thing I told him to do was set up your actual integration, your CI and your CD. And the reason why I saved that for last is because if you do all of the other things up front, and then you're all right, let me do the pipeline now let me get that deployment and stuff going, I don't ever have to go back and do this again. You should not have to go and be fixed. To me, DevOps is being a DevOps engineer is weird because I'm like, what do you really do? I'm just being honest. I'm being so honest. I'm being so real. Like, I really asked, I'm like, what does a DevOps engineer really do anymore? Right? Like, I'm like, you already got the GitHub Actions, you got the Travis CI, you got the Circle CI, you got all these tools that do all of these great jobs. At the end of the day, with a lot of these tools, it's pretty simple to build, contain. You build the binary, you put it in a container, you tell it to run, and you call it a day. Why do I need to fix this every time we deploy? Why do I need to deal with this every time we deploy? You shouldn't, right? You really should not. If you do it right, we should never have to go back to this. And that's what I told them. I'm like, I want you to write the code and I want you to do the infrastructure. And then what we'll do, we'll dictate the pipeline off of where we're going to be deploying into, and we'll never have to do it again. And then we can focus on the code. Because that's what you really want to do. You don't want to be sitting here playing with pipelines every time you deploy. It be people at Elastic, we have releases that take weeks. Sometimes it might take 7 days. I'm like, why are we doing things like this? Secret, it's a monolith. I didn't say that. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas, things y'all want to share? No? Yes? Have y'all enjoyed the conference? All right, cool. Favorite talk so far? Not mine. Not mine.
Leveling up, one downstairs and 102. Just a while ago.
That was a good one. Okay. The leveling up one. What's another good talk? Because I didn't get to see everything, so I'm using y'all for y'all experience, and I'm gonna go watch the videos later. Any other talks I should look out for? I had to shout out to Jameson. If y'all ain't seen Jameson's talk, go see Jameson's talk. Jameson's talk was fire. Like, Jameson's talk was fire. You said what?
I like Jay's ADHD talk.
The neurodiversity talk. Neurodiversity was a really good talk. Jay's neurodiversity talk was a really good one. It was a good. I have ADHD. I'm not gonna cap. So I was all in. Actually, Jay is actually the reason why I actually went ahead and got checked up on my ADHD. Low key, me and him used to work together. And he was like, bro, you should probably go do something about this. I said, you right. I should. You know, I'm hard-headed. I'm Nigerian. That's what we are. Huh? I did. All the time. I did. It took me like a month. I'm like, fam, what am I doing? Anything. Are y'all going to the thing later on? Y'all going to the event later on in the evening? Okay, cool. Well, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate y'all taking time out. I really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Give yourselves a hand for being here. Thank you. I'm unplugging this now. And yeah, thank y'all.